For now, since there's no racing, we're going to concentrate a little bit more on some of the cool stuff in my yard. If you know me, you know that my favorite type of car is Mopar, of course, Chrysler products. I have nothing against Chevy or Ford, but I am myself a Mopar guy. I have many different types of Mopars, from the early 60s all the way up to the late 70s, but my favorite of them all are 1963 to 1965 mid-size, which is the B-body. This one here, my race car, this one here, is a 1964, but this year I'm going to start, or this is a 1964, but I'm going to start with 1965 today, just because I'm a 1965 and you got to start somewhere. And 1965 was a fantastic year for Mopar. So without further ado, we'll show you some cool 1965 cars in my yard, including wagons, of course. This is a 1965 Dodge. We've had this for a while. I'm not sure what color this is. I like it. I like gold cars. When you're talking about Mopar station wagons of this vintage, these things, the tail lights, the tailgate, and the bumper, which you can see is no longer here, are all worth $500. So that's $1,500 worth of stuff right on the back of a car. So if you run into a, well, don't run into one, please, but if you happen to have or see a 1963 to 1965 Mopar station wagon that's been run into a tree or is damaged in the front, whatever, the back part of it is worth a lot of money. So grab a hold of that stuff with the owner's permission, of course. I've never had to sell these back windows. You know, everything's for sale in a junkyard, but they're pretty exotic looking piece. They came on all of them, Plymouth, Dodge, and it's one of the few pieces that doesn't change year to year. I don't know Ford and Chevy as well as Mopar, but they had this infuriating habit of making small changes to stuff just for the heck of making a change to it, and that just makes it different from year to year and makes it hard to fix up stuff. Here's the nose of a 1965 Dodge. In this year, the Dodges had 4 headlights, but the Plymouths had 2. I'll pop the hood for you here. This is the venerable workhorse engine of the day. It's a 318 cubic inch Y block, which is not the same as the later 318 LA engine. And without getting too deep into the weeds here, you can see this is the dead giveaway in these. The valve covers are held in by a through bolt right in the middle of the valve cover. Usually you'll, like on an LA engine, you'll see them around the sides. And the other thing is, you know, sometimes people call them, you know, it's the wide block. It's also been called the poly head. And they call it the wide block because it's wide. It's a very heavy engine. It weighs almost as much as a 440. This one's a 2-barrel. They came with 4 barrels sometimes. The intake manifold for a factory or even an aftermarket intake manifold for a 4-barrel for one of these engines is worth at least $500 because they're pretty rare. It's a good engine, you know, it's worth making it run. It doesn't get especially great gas mileage, and it's truly an obsolete engine, so getting parts for it it's not easy. It's, you know, a typical old engine. It comes with points, distributor, and solid lifters, so it's adjustable valves. It's kind of like a V8 version of the Slant 6, to be honest. It's a good engine. It makes noise. You know, I've had fun with it before. Other things to note. It's got the single pop master cylinder, which is dangerous. If that goes out, you got no brakes. Modern master cylinders have dual pot, so that you've got some backup. Of course, it's got drum brakes. This car could actually be made to run. We've done that before. It's got serious title issues. I mean, it's not stolen, but it's a long, boring story I won't even go into. See if there's anything interesting to see inside here. Oh, lots of good DVDs in here. You can see typical station wagon storage. Got a set of seats out of a late model Dodge Charger there, which seemed like a good idea to save at the time. I mean, you can't throw away leather seats. Here's the standard issue dashboard. Got some cobwebs. Kind of got the Scooby-Doo thing going in here. It's got the radio. It's not a stripper. It's got carpet, not the rubber floor mats. Bench seat. Nice headliner. They always are. They don't reproduce these headliners anymore. I think they're made out of asbestos or something horrible. Probably should be wearing protection in this car. Nice big steering wheel. It's all in decent shape. You know, all the little details and knickknacks in these cars, they just don't make this anymore. I mean, go to Napa or ask for a AutoZone, ask for a switch for the headlights on a 1965 Dodge. Here we have another 1965 Dodge station wagon. This one is an interesting car. It's originally a highway patrol car, so it's got a few things in here. I don't know if you remember seeing in the other 65 that we're looking at. This one has, look at this gigantic alternator. It's huge and double pulleys on it, double belts. It's because it had to run all kinds of radio equipment and stuff. This one has no air cleaner on it, so you can see the little tiny 2-barrel carburetor. This, of course, is another 318 poly engine. And look at this voltage regulator back here. It's like 4 times the size of the typical one that's in one of these cars. It's kind of funny looking. It's got this thing, which I love on these cars, the factory searchlight. I don't know if you can see that, it even says Mopar on it. It's an elegant piece. So we've got some interesting berries growing in there. You can see it's got raspberries, but those grow out of the 63s, not out of the 65s. 65s are more blackberries. You see, we sold the tailgate off of this one already, the bumper. Still got a decent set of taillights on it. If you need some, get in touch with me. These covers, they're also a rare piece, and they're never in good enough shape to take out of a car. They're so fragile. You can see getting that out of there. Good luck. A lot of that kind of stuff, either it comes good on the car or you figure out something else. In the station wagon, my race car, I just pulled them out and then painted the tubs inside. They looked okay. Again, this horrible headliner setup. Of course, you know, if you ever take the headliner out, save all those hoops or you'll be kicking yourself. And I heard good advice from somebody: when you take them out, number what position they came from, or mark somehow which one was the front, which one was behind it, etc. I just had somebody put an aftermarket headliner in mine, because the class that I race in, believe it or not, requires that you have the headliner. Stock eliminator for you. There's the fenders, or a set of fenders. Look underneath, you can see the rear axle assembly is missing. In 1965, Mopar changed over to a modern style axle assembly, which is a major upgrade. What they used in 1964, 63, 62, I can show you here. It's missing a bunch of it, but it was all secured with these crazy, it was like a nut that held the drum assembly on, and it was hard to get off and hard to keep on, and there are a lot of flaws in it. It's got this keyway on it, and to be honest with you, I don't even know how to deal with that. There's old man wisdom about how to loosen it up and drive around until it's loose, and then you can take it off, or scary. So if you have a 1965 B body hanging around in your yard and you're about to have it towed away, last thing you should do is take the rear axle assembly out, drum to drum. It's worth a lot of money. This car is a 1965, of course. This one is a Plymouth, and I call it the Belvedere 1 too, because it says Belvedere 1 on one side and Belvedere 2 on the other side. This one is actually not a station wagon. It's the lowest of the low. I'm assuming it was a Belvedere 1, but it was a slant 6. Cheapest car on the lot in the day. It's a 2-door post as opposed to a 2-door sedan. Or no, this would be a 2-door sedan, and a 2-door hardtop would be that style there. That's a 2-door hardtop. And they all look like this from 63 through 65 on the roof. The greenhouse is what that's called. You can see here's the side that says Belvedere 2 on it. Now, an interesting thing about all American cars in this vintage is that the lowest of the low, the grandma slant 6 grocery getter car, shares many features with the baddest of the bad. So this car, aside from the fact that it didn't come with a Hemi, I don't think it came with a Hemi. Oh, did it? It's missing. It has many shared features with the A990 Hemi race car of the day. Of course, it's got the post body style, which they thought was stiffer, because back then they didn't really care if you had a roll bar in it. Never mind a cage and all the other things that stiffen up a modern race car. Let's see, I store my tire collection in here. There's the dashboard. And like I was saying earlier, you can see like there's many details that just are completely different. I guess this is a Plymouth and the other ones are Dodges, but this has got more of a circular type of speedometer as opposed to the straight line speedometer in the Dodge. In the A990 Hemi cars, the automatics shifted backward away from neutral. So here's neutral, and so this would be, it would say 1 2 D instead of D 2 1. So you're shifting away from neutral. So when you're putting 500 horsepower to the ground, you don't accidentally throw it into neutral or reverse, heaven forbid, and make a big explosion. The explosion has to happen your way. You can see I cut the floors out. Again, this one's got the headliners are different in the sedans than they are in the wagons. The wagons have that weird asbestos cardboard stuff, whereas this has got more of a regular type of a headliner. Again, here's the hoops. It's very important. I just can't stress that enough. Don't throw those away. They look like nasty pieces of rusty crap, but you've got to save those. And then somebody knows what they're doing, or you, if you're feeling adventurous, they use those to install a new headliner, and that's one of the nicest things you can do to a car, aside from carpet and a good exhaust system. This car is someday going to be a fancy daily driver, I think, or I'm not sure what. I'm going to keep it. This thing, someday I'm going to do a YouTube on how to sell stuff on Craigslist, because I've had some funny stories with that. But every time that I put something on Craigslist and I accidentally have this car in the background, somebody will say, how much for that car in the background? Because they think they've got me on something, or, I don't know. They probably mean well. But this car, just looking at this car, if you know what you're looking at, you think, oh my God, that's a back in the day race car, because these were the baddest of the bad in 1965. And I always say, yeah, sure, I'll sell it to you. I mean, it's got a clean title, it's a good car. $5,000, bring a trailer and I'll say goodbye with a tear in my eye. And of course, all you hear is a dial tone after that. I'm not paying $5,000 for that. Okay, that's fine with me. Now, 1965, you may ask, why is that year any better than 64, like my race car? In 1964, Chrysler came out with the Generation 2 Hemi. They adapted the Hemi, which was the engine of choice for top fuelers in the late 50s and all the way through the 60s. The 392 Hemi that came in all the Chryslers was a mighty engine, and they would just go to the junkyard and grab a Chrysler engine out of an old Windsor or Imperial or some kind of big Chrysler and change the cam and put a blower on it and feed it nitromethane until it exploded. And it's still to this day the basic design of the Hemi head, the hemispherical head, is the go-to design for top fuel dragsters. So in 1964, Mopar decided that they wanted to up their game in NASCAR, and they adapted the old school style Hemi head. They made a new version of it and put it on the 426 platform. This is all in broad strokes. I mean, everything was reinvented. And, thus was born the Generation 2 426 Hemi, the legendary. And they went to Daytona, and they were, you hear these stories. It's fun to look up. You should read it on your own. It's fun stuff. But they were throwing the engines in and blowing them up and throwing more engines in, and they managed to get the program together enough that they won, like, I want to say 4 out of the first 5 and 8 out of the top 10, and they just dominated with this Hemi engine. I mean, it was like nothing anybody had ever seen on the NASCAR tracks before. So Ford and Chevy, or mostly Ford, said, no, we're not going to race in NASCAR if you let these guys get away with this baloney. So NASCAR said that Chrysler could not race with the Hemi in 1965. And Chrysler said, well, we're taking our ball and going home. So what they did for 1965 was they put all their eggs in the drag racing basket. So all their cars, all the high performance stuff that they did was for drag racing. And this and the 65 Dodge version of it were designated the A990, the A990, which is a famous Mopar. It doesn't have quite the ring as GTO or Barracuda or something like that, but there you have it. A990 is the baddest of the bad. And they dominated with this platform in 1965. And other things that happened in 1965, which made this car have the character that it does, is they were no longer allowed to use aluminum or fiberglass in their race products. So this car was all steel. But the way that they made the car even lighter in all steel than the aluminum versions of it from 1964. And they did this by, some say it was acid dipped, but I've heard from more reliable sources, but what they did was when they stamped the sheet metal, they used 2 thin layers of steel and then pulled the inside layer out. Regardless of how you think it was actually done, the end result was super lightweight steel. A friend of mine's got an original A990 car that maybe someday I'll be able to show you, and it's amazing. The metal, when you push on it, it goes and it's incredibly like, just, it's even more fragile than the aluminum. And this exact car, I think I'm going to leave it looking just like it is. Maybe I'll take one of them YouTube tutorials on how to keep your patina together. I don't want it rusting through, but I don't want to paint it. I don't really want to ever paint another car anyways, but this one I think just looks cool, rusty like this. I don't think I'll put a Hemi in it. I don't think I'll ever put a Hemi in anything, because boy, you just say the word Hemi. When I was doing a little bit of research for this YouTube, I like I always do, I got stuck on eBay and Craigslist, and you look up 1965 high performance Mopars and A990s, and before you know it, you're looking at stuff for sale. And oh my Lord, you wouldn't believe the valve covers for an A990 car cost $6,000. If you can believe that, $6,000. So I'm just going to put some kind of big block in it, and ideally what I'd like is to make it feel just like my race car inside, but make it so I could drive to the track and practice with this car without having to tow that big huge trailer. Well, that's been this week's adventure in the Wagons of Steel Boneyard in the mighty year of 1965. I'll be back next week. Pretty soon I'll do a 1964 feature. You can see there's a 64 Dodge back there. And later on we'll do 1963, and I have some road trips planned. So stay with us and make sure to subscribe and like us, and check in with you soon.